All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to our May YouTube Live question and answer session. If this is your first time joining, thank you very much for joining. Hopefully the audio and video is coming in loud and clear. It looks like I got a notification on my phone that I'm live, so should be working. But if you do have any problems, definitely let me know. And so we do these every single month, and basically we're going to go over some of the top news stories, a couple of the latest app updates, and then towards the end, we're also going to do an Ask Anything, where basically I'll be here answering any questions that you guys may have. So we'll spend a majority of the time doing that. And of course, make sure you stay tuned to the end too, because I'm going to be doing a little giveaway today. So we've got the Rideshare guide, and normally we like to give out some swag, but since my book just came out, we'll be giving out some of these books. And if you guys have already or if you guys have already purchased a copy of the book, then you can also, we have a separate giveaway going on right now, where if you leave a review on Amazon and send me an email, harry@therideshareguy.com, with a screenshot of your review, feel free, honest review, whatever you guys think of the book. I'd love to hear your feedback, and you'll be entered to win one of three. For every 3 entries we get, we're giving out a $20 Amazon e-gift card. So I know that let's see, Isaac S and Ron Dog, we got 7 entries so far. Isaac S and Ron Dog, we already sent out a couple gift cards to you, or let them know that they won. So if you guys are on, feel free to chime in. Looks like I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to join. We've got some people joining right now. Feel free to chime in. If you're watching live right now on YouTube, feel free to chime in on the chat and let me know where you're from, how long you've been driving for. And if you guys are watching after the fact, you won't be able to ask questions in real time, but you should be able, there's a new feature on YouTube. You should be able to see the chat. And then there's also, you can leave a comment below, and I'll do my best to get back to you and answer your comment there. Of course, you can always send an email. Looks like Lisa says, Harry's the best. He really does answer all new driver emails. Yeah, and we try, get a lot of emails from drivers, so we do miss one once in a while, but if you ever have any questions, feel free to email me personally, harry@therideshareguy.com, and I'll be able to hopefully answer your question, or at least tell you we can't answer, or send you in the right direction. So looks like we've got some people coming on right now. Bruce from San Francisco says he's been driving for 2.5 years. So that's great. Congrats, Bruce. That's a long time in rideshare years. Let's see. Dan, the driving man, St. Louis, Missouri. Yell says, hi, y'all. That's kind of confusing. And Robert says, Kansas City, first time getting to catch you live. So this is awesome. Sounds like we've got a good mix of newbie drivers, or maybe at least new to me or new to the YouTube Live coming on, and then a bunch of drivers too who have been here before. So super appreciative. If you guys have been here before, thank you very much for coming back. And then if you're brand new, welcome. And these YouTube Live sessions are a lot of fun. Like I said, we're going to get started right here. I like to go over a couple of the top news stories. So a couple big breaking news stories that have happened in the past few weeks. And then we'll also talk about, there've been a couple app updates to Uber and Lyft, and even one that I just saw right now. So I think it's always good to kind of stay on top of what's going on with the app updates and see how you can take advantage of that as a driver. And then we'll spend a majority of the time really answering all of your questions. So start thinking about the questions that you want to ask me right now. I've also got Christian from the Rideshare Guy in the comments. He'll be leaving links to anything that I mentioned, answering questions in the comments that I don't get to. And yeah, so this should be a fun session. We'll go for about an hour, and I'm going to try and answer everything I can. So it looks like we've got a decent amount of people watching live right now. Steven says, I've been driving for almost 3 years. Steven, welcome. I always see your name in these YouTube Lives, so thank you very much. Patrick says, hello, Linda, 1 year, Dallas, Texas. So, like I said, make sure you stay tuned to the end too, because we're going to be doing this giveaway for the book. We'll probably give out maybe 2 or 3 books today, depending on how the YouTube Live goes. If you guys ask good questions, that'll inspire me to give away more books. If the questions aren't that tough, don't make me think maybe I'll only give out a couple. So definitely stay tuned to the end, and you can enter for a chance to win the book. If you've already purchased the book, thank you very much. The sales are off to a great start, and we'll also have a giveaway for you too if you've already purchased the book, where if you leave an Amazon review, you'll be entered into giveaway too. I'll explain that at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. So I like to start off with a couple of the top news stories. And I think a big one that, has gotten a lot of press, but I think maybe drivers are a little confused by is this big Uber or sort of gig economy ruling in California. And basically what happened was this ruling came out that kind of laid out this new test that basically decides whether drivers or really any gig workers are going to be independent contractors or employees. And this has obviously been a big fight over the past few years where, a lot of labor advocates and people in politics and all that want drivers to be employees. Majority of drivers, we surveyed drivers earlier in the year, and 76% of drivers actually wanted to be independent contractors, sort of with the caveat that they want to be true independent contractors. And of course, Uber and Lyft want independent contractors. And basically what this ruling, it looks like it's going to make it very difficult for Uber and Lyft to continue with the current model of using independent contractors the way things are today, the way things are where drivers don't have a lot of say in the rates, for example, or where they don't know where passengers are going. And it lays out this ABC test. And, for me, I won't go into all the details right now. You guys can research it a little further. And if you're curious, but from this initial test that I saw, it's pretty clear that Uber and Lyft are going to fail this test. So it's sort of big news, but also it's probably going to be a while before anything actually happens around this. There's going to have to be some big lawsuits, or the government's going to have to get involved or something like that. So, I don't think it's going to be a huge issue for drivers right now, but, I'm curious to hear your feedback. Leandro says, I want to be an independent contractor. And he says, I don't consider myself an employee. And, that's definitely right on. I would say, like I said, 76% of, we surveyed over 1,100 drivers. 76% of you guys said that you want to be independent contractors. Now, you can imagine that for the drivers that are doing 40, 50, 60 hours a week, there tends to be a lot more of them who want to be employees because they're already working like employees, but without any of the benefits. And so I think that's kind of what's missed sometimes, that worker voice. The drivers want to be independent contractors, but obviously they want to be true independent contractors. Kenneth says, well, if they go to employees, that means more work, less pay. I don't know that if it necessarily means more work, less pay. I think it's really, we don't know. Traditionally, obviously, employees have been, work a 9-to-5 rigid type schedule. And, but there's really nothing that says employees have to work that schedule. I think ultimately what's going to happen is, since Uber and Lyft and really all of these gig economy companies are so dependent on the independent contractor model, it's going to definitely, they're not going to be switching away from independent contractor anytime soon. But I think this ruling could actually end up working out well for drivers, because Uber and Lyft are going to have to adapt to it. And since they don't want to classify drivers as employees, they're going to have to make things more truly independent. And I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but I have sort of a sneaking suspicion this may end up being a good thing for drivers. So we'll definitely see. George says they're starting to offer benefits in a different way. Bruce says, I like being independent contractor, but I don't like them guiding my hours and drives to earn a bonus. It makes me feel like they're treating more like an employee. Bruce, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Right now, as a driver, you obviously have the flexibility and the freedom to drive whenever and wherever you want. But if you've been driving for 1, 2, 3 years, you've probably noticed that Uber has lowered rates during that time. And now they may send out bonus offers or guarantees and say, hey, in order to make extra money, you need to drive these times and these places. So you can sort of see how now they're not controlling you directly, but they're sort of sneakily, I don't know if that's a word, but they're kind of coming around the back door and controlling you and, saying, okay, this is really when and where you need to drive in order to make the most amount of money. And of course, every driver wants to make the most amount of money. So you can see that, these guys are smart, right? They know what they're doing, and they tend to have their best interests at heart and not necessarily always drivers. So definitely something that you need to keep an eye out for, and we'll keep an eye out for that. So Secular Bible says it would be nice if people who have been driving for a while could get raises. Yeah, this is actually something that I brought up. I did a video about my interview with Uber CEO Dara K, and that was really one of the themes that came up over and over. Is that I really think that Uber needs to figure out a way to reward the most loyal drivers. Right? If you've been driving for 1, 2, 3 years, if you're a 4.95 star rated driver, if you have thousands of rides under your belt, you should be rewarded more than the driver who's brand new or right off the street. And that's not happening today. I think that's a big opportunity for someone like Lyft or even another company to really come in and figure out a way to reward drivers. So we'll definitely see what happens with that. I see your driver, Mike, has joined. What's up? I know we've been chatting over email. I think you've got a book coming your way, so stay tuned for that. And part-time driver says the destination filters are turned off during rush hour now. Yeah, I think we might have to do an updated video or article on the destination filters, but I've noticed that it's really the destination filters are getting worse and worse. And now even during busy times, you can't even use destination filters, which is kind of ridiculous. So Craigslist says 4.98 star rated driver over 2 years. Lisa says maybe annual bonuses. These are all great ideas. And Dan says the best business model is for a driver app, profit motivated, bottom line incentive. Best drivers leave all others to the bottom fishers. I don't know exactly what that means, but feel free to elaborate. I think I know what you mean, but I'm not quite sure. So awesome. So that is kind of one of the top news stories. I think the other story that we saw that got a little bit of press was around Uber. They obviously there was this big story about their autonomous vehicle unfortunately striking this woman in Arizona and killing her. And I guess it came out this week that Uber says its software was responsible for the pedestrian death in Arizona. And I guess I don't know why that's exactly news. I think we sort of knew that. I mean, if you watch the video, I'm not trying to joke about it, but like obviously the autonomous driving is supposed to detect a person walking in the middle of the street. It doesn't matter if it's at night or during the day, especially if they have a bike behind them and shopping bags and all that. So, I think long story short, drivers tend to ask me, and this is actually in the final chapter of my book, one of the questions that I answer, I think it's chapter 11 in my book, what about the future of drivers with autonomous vehicles? And sort of the answer that I give is, first of all, this is going to be a lot longer timeline than most people realize. Autonomous driverless cars are not going to be here anytime soon. And when they do come, it's going to be a very slow transition period. There's going to be a lot of speed bumps like this and issues that pop up. So as a driver right now, it's something I wouldn't be worried about, but probably something at some point in the future that's going to come. And to be honest, I think it'll probably be a hybrid of self-driving cars and Uber drivers, human drivers going into the future. So probably something that you don't need to worry about right now. And so those are a couple of the top news stories that you might want to keep an eye on. A couple of the other things I want to get to before we start taking questions, and I see a couple good questions coming in here soon. I'll get to those very soon. George says, autonomous or not, there's no guarantee. West Coast Kicks says it will take years for autonomous cars to become commonplace. So I think you guys all seem to agree with me. If anyone disagrees, definitely feel free to share, but probably going to take a lot longer. And West Coast Kicks says Uber wants to have flying cars too. So there's actually Uber today in Los Angeles is having this summit for Uber Elevate, which is all about their autonomous vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, basically air taxis. And I think that's another thing to kind of distract people from, maybe stupid investors trying to distract them from, what Uber's core business, Uber lost $4 billion last year and they're still messing around with air taxis and stuff like that. So I don't think it's a huge issue, but there have been a couple interesting app updates recently that I just want to touch on briefly. I saw that Maestro just released a new app update in April. It's still only available for Android, but they've got a long trip filter now, airport mode, and an option to turn off the auto acceptance on the stacked rides feature. So definitely, if you guys haven't checked out Maestro yet, it's an app that allows you to drive simultaneously for Uber and Lyft. I like to think of it as sort of a personal assistant for drivers. So it logs you on automatically to both Uber and Lyft. And then once you get a ride request, it accepts it and then logs you off the other app. And when you're done with your Uber ride, for example, it puts you back online with both. So definitely a good way to get more trips when it's not super busy out, and definitely something that I found very valuable for drivers. I love to see all of these new apps and products and services for drivers. So definitely stay tuned. I heard about some expansion plans for some other driver-friendly apps. So I'll definitely make sure to share those with you guys. Stay tuned to the YouTube channel, the blog, and all that good stuff. George says, Maestro is an awesome tool. Definitely agree. Danny says, Uber is wasting their money on weird things of the future. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. They tend to be wasting a lot of money on that. And speaking of wasting money, I know the new Uber driver app that they had this big announcement for, and a lot of people were kind of disappointed, or not kind of, but were very disappointed because they thought it was going to be something bigger, including myself. That new Uber driver app, though, is being rolled out in the next couple months. So if you're in Los Angeles or Atlanta, I believe are some of the first markets to get it. Definitely keep an eye out for that new Uber driver app. It's going to be coming soon. And we'll try to get a review up on the YouTube channel as soon as possible so that you guys can kind of, if you don't have access to it, you can take a look. And it looks like we've got a few more people joining. Alejandro says, first time here from Bakersfield. Welcome, Alejandro. And if you guys are just joining now, we're going over some top news stories and a couple app updates to the Uber and Lyft apps and Maestro. And then we'll get into the question and answer shortly. And we'll do a nice giveaway of my new book towards the end. And like I said, we do these YouTube lives every single month. So if you guys haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, definitely do so. We don't always send an email out when we go live. So if you're coming over, you got an email from us. We don't always send an email out. The best way to get notified of these YouTube lives is to subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn notifications on. We don't release a ton of YouTube videos, only 2 to 3 every week. So then that way you'll know when we have a new YouTube video coming out. And of course, when we go live, YouTube, my app told me 30 minutes ahead of time. Sometimes it'll tell you a day in advance. So definitely some benefits there. David says, hey, Harry, big fan. First time chiming in from Cincinnati. So awesome. Thank you for coming and joining, David. Now, before we get into the question and answer, I want to talk about just a couple quick, interesting updates. I'm going to see if this will work right now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I don't know if I've ever done this before on a YouTube Live. So let me know if this works or not. And let's go screen share. Application window, perfect. Okay, so I should be sharing my screen right now, so feel free to let me know if you guys see my screen, and hopefully it's working. But I want to show you one of our contributors, Joe, who you've probably seen on the YouTube channel. He just actually just tweeted me this. Look, 3 hours ago, brand new feature that Lyft is testing, which I thought was kind of cool. And it says, as a platinum driver, so once you've achieved platinum status with them, you've unlocked the estimated ride time reward currently in beta. Now you can see how long a ride is expected to take before accepting it. So I'm assuming they're saying, hey, if it's going to be a 30-minute trip, we'll let you know. If it's going to be a 5-minute trip, we'll also let you know. So that might be kind of a cool feature. And it looks like you can see my screen. All right, cool. So looks like that is working. Awesome. So that was a cool feature that I saw. And it seems like Lyft has been kind of undercover testing some of these cool things. And Christian actually wrote a good blog post. I'll go ahead and share this in the comments right now. And you guys can take a look at that and see. But we wrote this article. These are sort of some updates that I haven't seen a lot talked about this. Lyft, they're starting to reveal more payment info to drivers. So you can see this example right here. And I don't know that this is actually necessarily a good thing because it's very similar. I think we're going to start to see a lot of those screenshots where, Uber is taking up to 80% of the fare sometimes. And I think we're going to start to see that, unfortunately, with Lyft. So, as Christian said here, it's good that Lyft is showing us a full picture of the fare, but at the same time, if they're going to be taking a huge commission, that is obviously something that pisses a lot of drivers off. I still don't understand why Uber and Lyft both don't cap the commission, say they never will take more than 30 or 40 or 50%. And we also touched on Uber raised 5 to 10% their rates and their booking fees. That's not necessarily an app update, and that was only in a few cities. And this is also an interesting one that we found out about. Lyft is copying Uber's new test of surge pricing. So we wrote about Uber is testing this new surge pricing in Charlotte, I believe, and basically, instead of getting surge on a ride or prime time on a ride, they're going to give you actually a per dollar, so like a $2.58 bonus per ride, which, as you can imagine, kind of sucks for drivers because you don't have that huge upside, right? On a long surge ride or a long primetime ride, you're not going to get any of the benefit. So, I think that's definitely something that, drivers are probably not going to be big fans of. And let's see what kind of comments we got going on here. Lyft surges at my airport as well. So that's a feature that definitely you can take keep an eye for. And then the last thing I want to touch on that's kind of cool is a new feature that I think is pretty cool that Uber launched, and it's called, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically a short trip. You can skip the queue after a short trip. So if you're waiting in the airport queue and you get a minimum fare, for example, you can actually return back to the queue. And we don't know what defines a short trip, but I'm assuming a minimum fare, for example, would qualify. And that actually allows you to get back into the queue. So it's cool to see Uber and Lyft starting to realize some of these pain points. I mean, this has honestly been a problem for probably 3 or 4 years, so I'm not going to give them a ton of credit. But at the same time, it is cool to start realizing some of these changes that they're making that would be potentially beneficial to drivers. So let's go ahead and I will stop sharing my screen, and hopefully I came back up for you guys. So yeah, these are definitely some of the features we've seen. Andrew says it pisses me off when it shows Lyft made more than me on a ride, especially when I did all the work. So totally agree with you. And I mean, I think this is a big problem with upfront pricing with both Uber and Lyft, is that there are rides now where Uber and Lyft are making a majority of the fare, sometimes 60, 70, 80%. And it may all balance out in the end, but we don't know what the overall commission that Uber and Lyft takes. You know, we've kind of studied it in the past, and the overall commission we found is 30 to 40%. But there's no reason that, you know, maybe today it's the overall commission might be 50%, it might be 60%. We really don't know. And so that's one of the things that I really do not like about upfront pricing, and we've kind of covered extensively. So I want to start answering some of your guys' questions. You put up with me long enough talking about all of these app updates and what's going on in the news. So thank you for that. All right, take a little sip of water since I've been talking a lot. And Leandro, let's start answering some questions. So Leandro says, Harry, I have a question for you. Uber or Lyft can deactivate me if I don't take requests enough, if my acceptance rate is very low. So no, you cannot be deactivated by, Uber has a specific policy that will not deactivate you for a low acceptance rate. So when you're sitting there and you're seeing a request come in, you can ignore as many as you want. Sometimes if you ignore 2 to 3 in a row, Uber will put you in sort of a timeout where you can't get new requests, but you can always log off the app and log back on. Or if you ignore 2 in a row, you can log off and then log back on. And that sometimes resets your timeout counter, but Uber will no longer deactivate drivers for ignoring requests. Lyft doesn't have the same policy, but I haven't heard of drivers being deactivated for it recently. So they sort of probably still have that same policy, but it's just not in writing like it is with Uber. Now, cancellations are a different story. We have still seen drivers get, you know, if you're canceling on every other passenger, and if you're calling passengers, asking them where they're going all the time, or, you know, they're getting in the car and you don't like where they're going and you're canceling on every other passenger, you can imagine that's a pretty bad experience for the passenger, and Uber and Lyft don't like that. And so they will still deactivate drivers for that. Christian says the trouble comes from canceling rides. So that's exactly the point that you guys need to watch out for. Acceptance rates don't matter. And that's kind of why an app like Maestro is cool, because it allows you to filter certain rides. So when it's super busy, for example, I might set my passenger rating filter to 4.6 and above, right? Normally, I don't think passenger ratings really matter, but you know, if someone's rated 4.2 or 4.1, it's probably for a reason, right? They're probably in like an a-hole, or they probably keep you waiting. There's something wrong with that passenger, you know, unless they've only done 1 or 2 rides. So, you know, definitely think about those ways you can take advantage of some of those features when it's busy, and you can be a little bit more selective. So Steven says, do you know anything about the Nexar dash cam? So yeah, I actually met with Nexar a while back, and I think it's a cool idea. You know, I met with them when they were still asking drivers basically to use, I think it was an iPhone only app that you would put on your dash and use as a dash cam basically, and it records other drivers and kind of crowdsources data. So I think what the idea behind Nexar is that, you know, you might have someone coming up on your rear, your camera spots them, and they know, and your camera knows from this database that, hey, this driver's a terrible driver, watch out for being cut off or something like that. And then of course it also records everything. But the problem for rideshare drivers, as you might imagine, is if it's using your phone, then that's a problem, right? Because you're pulling your phone down, you know what I mean? It might be in the way. It's hard to run it on the same phone, you know, a dash cam app. I feel like I haven't stayed super up to date with the company. I feel like they may have their own camera or some type of different setup now. But, you know, as far as dash cams, I actually I actually just, Steven, it looks like you've had it for a while. So feel free to share some feedback. I think I'm describing their product from at least a year or two ago when I met with them. If it's changed, definitely let me know. But that's kind of, to my understanding, that's what Nexar is. And, when it comes to dash cams in general, I actually, for dash cams, I think this is kind of like one of the most basic tools in your driver arsenal that you should have. And I mean, really, it's for insurance purposes, but also just in general, I've found that it really prevents bad behavior from passengers. When people know they're on camera, they behave a lot better. And so that's one thing, if you're experiencing trouble there with your passengers, it helps there. And it's also just, I think of it as like a cheap insurance policy. And even though the dash cams aren't cheap, the one that I personally use and kind of recommend is the Falcon 360. We had a good comparison of the Falcon and another cam this week on the rideshareguy.com from one of our contributors, Curtis. So there's lots of cameras out there on the market. Personally, I use the Falcon and I find that it works pretty well for me and, kind of suits my needs. But I think a dash camera is, a no-brainer. I interviewed on the podcast this week, the episode isn't out yet, but I actually interviewed a personal injury lawyer named Bryant Greening from Legal Rideshare, who helps drivers when they get into accidents and, helps them with their claims and everything like that, and super beneficial service to drivers. But that was one of the things he recommended, rideshare insurance and a dash cam, especially when it comes to potential liability issues and, just making sure that you're totally protected as a driver. So that definitely is something to keep in mind. Your driver, Mike, says, great dash camera. I also use the Falcon 360. And to be honest, I think the Falcon's great, but it's not perfect for a driver. There's still a few features that I would love: a little bit of a wider angle, a better night vision. And also I think it's cool. Some of the cameras have kind of a motion detector, right? So if someone bumps into you, it'll start recording even if you're not in the car, and you kind of get their license plate if they don't leave a note, or if someone sideswipes you, for example. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And yes, I mean, I think that is some good tips on dash cams. The Falcon 360, like I said, George, that's what I use and kind of recommend. Ryan says, if your rating gets too low, can you take a class and get a second chance? And yeah, Christian answered this too. You in the past used to be able to take a class, and I actually interviewed one of the guys named Rez LeBoy. It was episode number 5 on my podcast. So the rideshareguy.com/episode 5. And he talked all about the services that he offers to drivers. I believe that is still active, but I haven't seen Uber advertising it as much for drivers who are deactivated due to low ratings. The only way you can actually get reactivated typically as a driver is if you've been deactivated for low ratings, right? And Uber will, in some cities, give you a second chance. You can go take this class and pay $50 or $60 and then get reactivated. But if you're deactivated for something like canceling too many rides, you may be out of luck, and there's no, set path to getting back onto the platform. So definitely something to keep in mind there. Marlon says Vantrue N2 Pro is really good. Scansran says the Vantrue is trash. So I guess there you have it. The jury is out on the Vantrue. Some of these other cameras, honestly, I personally haven't tried out all the other cameras, but we have a couple contributors that have. I want to double check we compared basically on Monday. We compared the Vantrue N2 Pro versus the Falcon Zero F360. So I want to make sure that I say all that right. I'll leave a link right here in the show notes, and you guys can take a look if you want to look and kind of see that comparison. So hopefully these answers are helpful to you guys. Definitely keep the questions coming. We're about halfway through, so we've got another 30 minutes of questions. And like I said, if you're just joining our YouTube Lives for the first time, welcome. If you're coming back for a second or third or fourth or even more, thank you very much for joining. And make sure you guys stay tuned to the end too. We'll be doing a nice little giveaway of my book. And if you've already entered, we've got a little giveaway for you. Or if you've already bought the book, we've also got a little giveaway for you too. And let's see what other questions we have coming in. Rideshare 2K17 says, if we became employees, we would not be able to not accept rides and have to accept everything no matter how far. So, I mean, I don't know that is necessarily true. I think that Uber would definitely have more control over things if drivers were employees. But at the same time, there are, I could imagine a situation where, hey, if you're, maybe you get fired instead, right? But that can sort of still happen today, right? As an independent contractor, Uber is the one that has the policy now that, hey, you can acceptance rate doesn't matter, but they do still have a policy on cancellation rates. So I think that's the big thing with me. Dan says, I'm using a 2017 Nissan Leaf, 100% electric. I'd be curious to know about your experience, Dan, because, you know, I've talked to some drivers that are using Nissan Leafs and the range isn't quite far enough, in my opinion. You know, I think it's only 120 miles and, you know, the range actually goes down over time. So, you know, I don't know that that's quite enough. You know, what the car that I like is actually the Chevy Volt. It has a 220-mile electric range. It's expensive, but you can rent one, for example, through a third-party service like Maven. They're renting cars to rideshare drivers, so that's definitely an option. Tyler says, I bought the book. Well, thank you very much, Tyler. I really appreciate that. George says, I've been driving for Lyft and making 20 to 23 per hour. That's great. You know, when we surveyed our audience, we surveyed over 1,100 drivers, and the average earnings that drivers reported were about $17 to $18 an hour. That's before expenses. But, you know, definitely one of the things we found was that the more experienced drivers tend to make, you know, more money. I think it was $5 more per hour than new drivers. So, you know, like I always said, if you're employing good strategy and, you know, thinking critically about these things, you might not be able to make double someone else, but you can definitely make more than the typical or average or even the you know, beginner type driver. So let's see. Tyler says Uber Lyft will pull out of Hawaii if Bill 35 passes. Yeah, and Tyler, I don't know if you're the one who's been messaging me. A couple drivers from Hawaii have been messaging me about this bill that's you know, potentially going to really affect Uber and Lyft, and Uber and Lyft are threatening to pull out. You know, I guess what I would say is, I would probably wait until the dust settles. You know, typically there's a lot of fighting that goes on beforehand, and then you know, towards the end, the cities usually kind of succumb to Uber and Lyft's demands, and it's not an issue, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Feel free to let me know if you have any specific questions there, and I'll get those answered. Let's see, what else do we got coming in? So, all right. George says, critical thinking is imperative. Surge driving says, Tyler says, hybrid minivans I like. I don't know, what hybrid minivans are there? I've never driven a minivan, but I'm sure there's some hybrids out there, and I imagine that would be great because then you can do Uber XL. We just interviewed a really cool XL driver on the podcast, so definitely check that out on the Rideshare Guy podcast. You can find it in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts if you want to know a little bit more about driving XL. And let's see. Slavic says, as soon as I rest, gets an idea. Previous drivers right now are employees. They'll go after Uber for the last 3 years. I'm not sure. Feel free, if you have a question there, let me know. And then Scott says, I found that I usually make $24 to $30 an hour by driving smart and on weekends. Yeah, that definitely sounds doable to me. Greg says, does a written warning go on your driver's license or background check? So I'm assuming that you mean, if Uber sends out some type of warning to you, does it go on your driver's license or background check? Or are you talking about if, you know, a police, I'm not sure what type of written warning you're referring to, but I don't know of anything that would go on your license or background check unless it's some type of moving violation or, you know, kind of like assault. You know, if you assault someone, you know, and that goes on your, not your permanent record, but your criminal record, right? That type of stuff all shows up on your background check. Surge driving says, what's the main difference between surge and boost? Well, if your screen name is surge driving, you should you'll want to know the difference between surge and boost. And basically the difference is that surge happens kind of automatically. Surge is the system that Uber uses to balance supply and demand. So when there are a lot of riders requesting rides and not enough drivers, they raise the prices that passengers have to pay in order to encourage more drivers to get out onto the road. Boost is sort of like predetermined surge. So earnings boost is kind of a bonus program that Uber uses in certain cities, and we haven't seen as much of it lately, but you know, it basically incentivizes drivers to drive in certain parts of town. So if you get a ride in a certain area, you know, on the map, you'll see that there's a 1.4 earnings boost. So it's sort of like a guaranteed surge, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that the passenger will have to pay that, right? So they really are kind of trying to position drivers around. Now, if surge goes above an earnings boost during the same time, then you'll actually get the higher surge versus the lower earnings boost. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And let's see. Oh, Rideshare Genius is in here. I think we've got a meeting tomorrow, so I'll look forward to that. Don't be late, Ezra. And let's see. Truthmaker says Uber won't accept a Mazda 5 minivan as XL anymore. They say you have to be able to seat 6 passengers, not 5. And yeah, I mean, I guess to the best of my knowledge, Uber XL has always been 6 passengers in addition to the driver. Yeah, I mean, it's always been 6, to the best of my knowledge. Maybe they made exceptions in the past, but I mean, I think it sort of makes sense, right? Uber X is 4 passengers. So, just having one more Uber XL wouldn't seem to make a lot of sense. I mean, I think 6 definitely makes sense. Steven says, I live in Marin and only saw Boost once here every morning in SF. Yeah, earnings boost and Uber Quest tends to happen a lot more in the bigger cities, San Francisco and LA. And I know we have some viewers right now who are watching who probably don't care about bonuses because they're in a smaller or medium-sized city where they just don't get them. But it is a big part of driving in LA or San Francisco, for example. So, all right, cool. Rideshare Genius. And then let's see. Andrew Lyft says, doesn't that just saturate the market in that area, making it more difficult to get a ride in that area? Yeah, and that's true. But, the way that Earnings Boost works, and we've got an article about this on the site, it's a bunch of different, so, in one area, a little, let's say a half square mile area, it'll be 1.2, and then the next area over 1.3. And so it's not like everyone go to this area and it's 2.0, right? It's more balanced. And so it just sort of tries to spread drivers out a little bit and incentivize you to work in certain areas. So that's really, what Uber earnings, what's it called? Uber Earnings Boost is, or whatever they call it. So let's see what other questions we have coming in here. Sonia says, how does it work with to travel through different states with Lyft and to the Boost? So to the best of my knowledge, you can actually still drive for Lyft in any state, almost every state in the country. There are a few cities that have specific rules where it won't allow you. And, if you actually email or message Lyft and ask them, they'll tell you that you can't drive in other states. But, I've talked to many drivers. I interviewed a driver, Simon, on the podcast about a year ago who gave a ride in 65 different Lyft cities. So it's definitely possible. I haven't personally tried it lately, but I haven't heard any problems either. So, this is an issue for Uber, though, because you definitely can't drive in other states with Uber. I think there are a couple East Coast states where, some of the East Coast states that are right next to each other, there is some crossover allowed, but for the most part, you in Nevada, California, you can't, right? So if you get a ride in California and you drop off in Nevada, you have to drive back to California before you're able to get your next request. So Christian says, I actually tested this. And he says it works everywhere but places like NYC. Yeah, and so that's sort of to the best of my knowledge. I don't think anything has changed there. We used to test it a lot and try it a lot. I haven't got a ton of questions. We used to get a lot of questions from drivers who are going on vacation in other states and want to do some driving. And basically the short answer is you can drive in other states with Lyft, but not with Uber. Eric says not true. Feel free to elaborate if you have other information. And let me know. So Dan says, from St. Louis to Florida, my Lyft app worked out of state. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and sounds like he drove in Florida. And so, yes, George, Lyft can work in other states as a driver. Linnell says, what's up with the California ruling? So that was actually something that I covered at the beginning of the YouTube Live. You may have missed it, so feel free to rewind a little bit, once this is over, Linnell, and you can see my answer to that question. Eric says, does anyone know how a Lyft driver could lose the privilege to receive IEHP request? I don't know what IEHP is. So feel free to let me know. You're using a lot of abbreviations and I don't know what any of those mean. So definitely let me know. And Cape Cod says, Lyft sent me an invitation to be a Lyft ambassador. I thought they canned that program. So you know what? That's funny that you mentioned that because our contributor Jay, who's also on the YouTube channel, you guys have probably seen his videos. He's a power driver, does a ton of driving. He actually just got an invite to the Lyft ambassador program too. And so he signed up. He's doing a little research and he'll definitely have an article and a video about that Lyft ambassador program. But basically what it is, honestly, I thought they got rid of it too, but it sounds like Lyft is bringing back the ambassador program. And what it is, it's sort of like, a more powerful referral program where you're supposed to go out and refer a bunch of people to drive with Lyft. And in the past, they would encourage you to take Uber rides, and they would even give some drivers a phone, and you could go out and recruit basically Uber drivers to come over and drive for Lyft. Uber had their own version of this. And if you guys are curious about this, we interviewed a guy named Hamed Yazdi on our podcast, who was sort of like a super Lyft recruiter ambassador. And you guys can learn about all the ways he was able to make a lot of money doing that. It was a pretty cool interview and a pretty cool story. So definitely check that out. So yeah, definitely something you can keep an eye out. Rideshare 2K says doesn't work in the DMV because you need a vehicle inspection, but not with Lyft. So Eric says New Jersey doesn't work in upstate New York or Connecticut. And H. Malesio says, Harry, Uber says the city of Chicago does not approve of my 2018 Nissan Sentra midnight edition to be used for rideshare driving. Do you have any input on this? So I'm not familiar with the Nissan Sentra. I believe it's just a 4-door sedan. So I don't know why it would have any problems, but there are some cities that have kind of weird rules. Chicago is one of them. If you guys drive in Chicago, you may have noticed that they don't show the passenger rating. So in every city but Chicago, when you get a ride request, you can see some information, and one of the things you can see is the passenger rating. Chicago, though, is a city where they actually don't share that information because it's kind of a local rule. And so I don't know why exactly they do that, but yeah, that's kind of what it is. And West Coast Kick says IHP is a medical insurance plan. Oh, that one. Okay, so West Coast Kick says IEHP is a medical insurance plan that pays for rides for patients going to medical appointments. Yeah, so I've heard of that program before, and I don't know if you can lose the privilege of doing that. I thought that it was a ride I thought it was sort of just available for any driver. I don't know that it's a special program, but I know it's only in a couple cities, so I'm not as familiar with it. Feel free to shoot me an email and we can take a further look though and sort of see what the deal is there. But looks like we've got a few other questions coming in. Andre says, tip capping. Man, you guys are really asking very mysterious questions today. You got to give me a little bit more information and I'll be able to answer your questions and hopefully be able to help you. So Uberman says, who has the better system? I'm assuming, I don't know if this is the real Uberman or maybe a different Uberman. And I'm assuming you're meaning Uber or Lyft maybe has the better system. Feel free to elaborate there. But, like I said, so we've been going for about 45 minutes. We'll answer another maybe 10 minutes of questions. So if you guys are watching live right now, feel free to get your last questions in. And like I said, in a few minutes, we'll do a giveaway of my new book. It looks like we got a little testimonial right here, actually. Perfect timing. Dan says, buy Harry's new rideshare book, the best driver guide I've ever found. Harry, thank you for your energy and advice here. I refer you to drivers here in the Midwest. Thank you. And I really appreciate that. I think one of the cool things for me is whenever I hear drivers, when they email me or send me a Facebook message or a tweet and say, hey, I heard about you from another driver, that's always super cool to me because it means that there are a lot of drivers out there finding value and, sharing articles or maybe buying the book for their friends. And so that's always a, really cool thing. And I'm really appreciative of that. And Jay says, I was an Uber passenger yesterday and the tip options were more than $7. So Jay, I'm assuming that you probably had a longer ride. And, I've noticed that Uber is actually finally starting to test some different options on tipping. And, if you guys have probably noticed, obviously Uber rolled out this tipping option a while ago, but there haven't been a ton of tips on Uber. I think a lot of passengers are used to not tipping, and even simple stuff, like when you end the trip on an Uber ride, Uber doesn't remind the passenger later on to leave a tip. Like I was even at Starbucks the other day and I paid with my app, and later on it reminded me to leave a tip for them through the app. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, right? Uber doesn't do any of that. And I really feel like they're missing a huge opportunity, to kind of improve the tipping and really, kind of not convince, but nudge passengers into tipping more. So it seems like they're definitely doing some of the stuff there. Jay says it was 20 miles, but $31. So yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. Usually for shorter trips, I've seen on the passenger side of the app for Uber right now, for shorter trips, the options might be $1, $2, $3 or $1, $2, $5. And then for longer trips, the amount goes up 3, 5, 7 or whatever it might be. And, it's tough because obviously on shorter trips, I think, on a $5 or $10 trip, it's great to have a $2 tip option because that's 20% right there, right? Whereas, that's 20%, right? But if you go on a $5 trip and you give the option 10, 15%, right? 10% of $5 is only 50 cents. So even on a $5 trip, if they're giving the $1, $2, $3 option still, I think they can do a lot more of that type of stuff to really kind of, all those dollars start to add up. So that's definitely cool. But, I think they need to do a better job there. Lisa says, do you sell these RSG t-shirts? No, these are not for sale, but I do, when I meet with people in person, I do give them out there. So we do, we do a lot of giveaways though of hats and books and things like that. So I think if you do a good job following me, you're able to win some swag pretty easily. We give away a lot of stuff and, have some pretty easy, a lot of times we do these giveaways, and as Christian can tell you, not many people actually end up entering the giveaways, and we've given away some pretty cool prizes yet. West Coast Kick says, I get a lot more tips with Lyft, and yeah, definitely, I've heard that for sure. Let's see. George says, I've had as much as $200 cash in one tip. And LOL Sierra says, are you gay? Wow, very mature question. No, I'm not. Although, like Seinfeld would say, not that there's anything wrong with that. George says, I use an unlimited car wash plan. Definitely a great option. I know I'm kind of weird about my car washes. I just like looking at my car and seeing it clean. So I use this place that's right nearby. That's $7 for a nice wash. And then it's not hand wash or anything like that, but it's through the machine. It's only $7, and I usually tip them $1 or $2. And then, you can just kind of finish it off. It dries it for you, but air dry. And then I just finish it off with a towel. And there's, it only takes like 10 minutes. So that's the thing I like, that it's just quick. Some of these, longer, or, these car washes take like 30, 40 minutes. I don't have time for that. So I like getting the quick car washes and cheap, or you can also, go for, the monthly plans. Melissio says, someone please kick off LOL Sierra. That was a super bogus question. For whatever reason, I actually don't get a lot of trolls on my YouTube lives. We've gotten a couple once in a while, but I always welcome any critical questions, but hopefully you guys can have some tougher questions for me. So let's see, $49 per month. Yeah, that sounds like a good deal. And Jay says, we have a car wash place that's $6 and unlimited vacuums you do yourself. So that's actually what my place is too. I think it's $6 or $7. Maybe we go to the same one actually. And yeah, the vacuum is awesome, because that's one thing that I noticed too, with a lot of passengers getting in and out of your car, there'll be a little dirt on the ground, and that's kind of a simple thing. It's easy to shake out the mats here and there. And if you guys really start thinking about it, that's why I think taking a ride as a passenger is so important once in a while. There's a lot of little stuff that you can do that makes a huge difference, right? You might be thinking to yourself, hey, I don't want to go get a $6 or $7 car wash every week, but the next step up, or sort of the next step down, would be literally just shaking your mats out whenever you have a few spare minutes, right? And that makes a big difference for a passenger, because most drivers are lazy. Most drivers are not willing to take literally 30 seconds to shake out. And you don't even have to do the front. You just have to do the back mats, right? So when passengers get into the car and they look down, right, where they're going to put their feet, they see a somewhat clean mat, right? You're really able to, I love the little tips and tricks like that, where you can stand out from 90% of other drivers, and it takes 30 seconds and costs you $0. So that's definitely something that you can definitely do. Jay says, I've got a heavy bathroom brush that works great on my carpets. Well, we've got a lot of people interested in car washes and floor mats. So that's definitely cool. Christian says, shaking mats has saved me a ton of money. So definitely agree. Rideshare Genius, who also has got a great YouTube channel. You guys can check it out. Especially, I know he's got a really popular Uber Eats video. He says, I can get in and out of 10 minutes in a coin-op car wash. Coin-op car wash for life. All you need is a nice chamois and a couple rags, $2.50. So that's definitely a great deal. And George says, I always tip people in different industries. Do what you want others to do to you. And that's a great tip. So when I go to my car wash place, they have the $6-7 and they have the $10 and the $13 wash. I always tip them a couple bucks. And and then sometimes they'll actually, upgrade me to like the $13 wash because, it's just like a button for them. They don't care. So I sort of like to pay it forward in that way, right? If I get a discount on something, I try to pay it forward to the people, not the owners. I don't give a crap about the owners of the car wash place because it's probably some rich multimillionaire, but I like paying it forward to, the guys that are like actually working there, servicing that. So that's definitely, kind of how I operate there. And Uberman says, will you all work for $20 an hour, either a real job, or you rather do Lyft and Uber for a living? And I mean, I think that honestly, when it comes to, the real job versus Uber and Lyft, every person is different. I think that's one of the big things about my channel, about my new book, about my site in general, is that I don't like to tell people, hey, if you're making $15 an hour, that's not enough, or $20, that's not enough. I can definitely see that right now, a lot of drivers feel that they should be paid more, and rates are a big issue. But at the same time, you're always going to have people who, for them, right, if you have no job right now and you're coming into Uber and Lyft, $15 an hour might be great. If you're living in San Francisco, $25 an hour might not even be enough for you. So, I think everyone definitely comes at it from a different place. But there's obviously the same benefits as far as flexibility and some of that scheduling flexibility that you can take advantage of. So that's definitely you can take a look at. Let's see. Rideshare Genius, we have a couple questions coming in about Uber Eats, and Rideshare Genius says, my take is that Uber Eats can be a good complement to driving passengers. I've had more success getting tips with delivery versus rides. And this is definitely something we hear from DoorDash and from Postmates, is that, I think DoorDash, they told us that 97% of customers tip on DoorDash. So, that's definitely one way that, there's not as much customer interaction and not as much chance to show, how good of a delivery person you are, but you tend to get a lot more tips that way. Jay says, I will not do Uber Eats. No food smells in my car, please. And yeah, that's definitely one of the downsides. I know Rideshare Genius and I have both been trying out a new service here in LA that's expanding rapidly. It might even be, I know they're in Nashville, Austin, everywhere, but it's called Bird. And basically what it is it's electric scooters. And so it's sort of like what I call personal mobility. So think of like the Razor scooters. And if you're in LA or Santa Monica or any San Francisco, one of these cities where Bird or some of their competitors, Spin, Lime, have launched, you've probably seen these things around, but they actually hire on-demand workers to go out and charge these things. And it's getting a little bit more competitive now because people are starting to realize that you can make some pretty good money charging for Bird. But basically what they do is they hire what they call Bird chargers, and you go out towards the end of the night and pick up scooters, charge them at your house overnight, and then release them in the morning. And so you can actually make $5 to $20 per scooter. And, if you're a real hustler and you've got a big car and, you don't mind going out there in the evenings and getting up early and dropping them off, you can actually make some pretty good money. So definitely an opportunity there. Andrew says, I want to be a lime juicer. So yeah, that's what they call it. They call lime, Bird calls them chargers and Lime calls them juicers. These companies are all really big on puns. So I'm going to share my Bird article right now about me signing up to do Bird scooter charging. And you guys can go check that out if you're interested. And as far as delivery, Steven says, where are my chopsticks? That's the one thing I found with delivery, right? Especially, I've tried a lot of these services out from the consumer point of view. Imagine when you go out to a restaurant, you have all these little things that you want, right? Like I think whenever I go to a place and order a burger and fries, for example, what's the one condiment you always get? Ketchup, duh, right? Like that's pretty obvious to me, but I've ordered deliveries on Postmates, DoorDash, or whatever, and not gotten ketchup on a burger and fries. And, it's not a huge deal, but you could really see how like those little tiny things, like people are demanding, right? You guys have dealt with Uber and Lyft passengers before, right? Imagine when something small like that goes wrong, customers get pissed. And so I would say if you're really good at attention to detail and you don't mind thinking about that stuff and kind of putting yourself in other people's shoes, that matters a lot more, I think, in the delivery space than it does in, rideshare driving, where it's, there's still some challenges with picking it up and dropping people off, but for the most part, it's just getting people safely from A to B. And Christian says it's a huge deal. It kills me. And to be honest, I kind of agree. Like if you order burger and fries, you got to include ketchup, guys. I demand ketchup. So but it is kind of a small thing. But those are the types of issues. Ultimately, all of these jobs I think are similar. One of the trends, though, I've seen is, when these services are new, one of the reasons why I'm recommending people sign up for Bird charging right now, for example, is when it hits your city. I mean, I know chargers in San Francisco who are getting $10 to $20 a scooter, and they're racking up like 10 to 15 a night, and it's taking them like an hour of work, maybe an hour and a half. And so it can be very lucrative. And of course, over time, and I think what we're starting to see now, and I actually talked to the Rideshare Genius about this recently, is hey, over time, of course, as more people discover it and more people hear about it, more people are going to sign up. There's going to be more competition, and the companies can pay lower rates. So if you're sort of staying on top of some of these new services, you don't mind being a guinea pig and, really like figuring out ways to take advantage of some of these new services, there's a lot of opportunity there, that I think definitely you should be thinking about and taking advantage of. Although at the same time, if you just want to go out and drive, Uber and Lyft are probably your best bet there, because they're always going to be reliable, and you don't have to worry about as much of the competition side of things and things like that. Andrew says, I applied 2 weeks ago and haven't had a reply. So I would obviously definitely follow up with the company, social media. I mean, you can find these guys on LinkedIn if you're really passionate and you want to go work for one of these companies. LinkedIn's an option. And so Jonathan says, what's the most effective way to get a response from Postmates Support? So, I mean, I think that in general, the companies either have their, I'm not sure for Postmates specifically, I haven't reached out their support in a while, but, I would say either, for those kind of like typical problems in general with all these companies, whether it's Uber and Lyft or Postmates, if you're having issues, what I would usually go for is, kind of like if it's something quick and easy, you can always do an email or in chat support, or send a message through the app, something like that. If it's something a little more complex, then I tend to either go for the phone support or the in-person support. And now, obviously, not every company has that, and so it can be a little challenging. But I definitely have found the more complex the problem that you're having, sort of the more hands-on you want to get, and with that support, right? So, for example, if you're having like really big issues with Postmates, maybe you go directly to their customer service team on Twitter and try to get help from someone there who's more knowledgeable, who's more seasoned, who's more veteran with the company. So, for the most part, that's definitely what I recommend. And let's see. Paul says, talk about why it's almost impossible to ask Lyft or Uber a question or make a suggestion. Well, I don't know that it's impossible to ask them a question. I think they actually make it pretty easy, right? You can do it with Uber, you can do it from the app. You can also ask them a question on social media. You can also go into the Uber support centers. The response that they give you may not be super happy with, and the suggestions that you're able to give them, I agree with you there that, I think Uber and Lyft need to do a much better job of listening to drivers and really just giving them an outlet for what problems need to be fixed or what needs to be changed. Of course, if you guys are experiencing anything like that, we're doing articles and content about that from time to time. And feel free to email me personally, Harry@therideshareguy.com. That I will at least read it and probably respond to you if you have a question. But for the most part, I know Christian has a cool article coming out about the Lyft Driver Advisory Council. So that's a good way with Lyft. So if you are having, for example, like if you have, updates or changes that you want to see, you can actually email these people on the Lyft Driver Advisory Council. And these are drivers just like you and I. And I don't think this program is super well known, but Christian, this is probably definitely something that we should add to our article that's coming out, is that, drivers should be reaching out to these Lyft Driver Advisory Council people, because they're the ones who are meeting with Lyft from time to time and, sort of representing drivers and getting their points across. Obviously, I have, some ability to do that too through our content. So you can reach out to me, you can reach out to other people. But I think the more kind of feedback that we can pass on, the better. And definitely, these companies don't do a good job of at least giving us a place to vent. Even if they're not going to read, they should at least give us a place to vent. Rideshare Genius says, a great way to get a response on Twitter for Lyft, Ask Lyft, so @AskLyft. And yeah, I definitely have found that with a lot of these companies, they tend to put their best people on social media, so you won't get sent to, the lower level customer support reps, and, you can get a little bit better help there. So that definitely is something that you can try. And let's see. I don't know if we've got too many other questions. If you guys have any final questions, definitely let me know. I'm going to start wrapping things up. And if you guys do want to enter the giveaway, we had some great questions today. So I think I'll give away 3 copies of my new book, The Rideshare Guide, Everything You Need to Know about driving for Uber, Lyft, and other ride-sharing companies. And to be honest, I'll give you the quick pitch for this because I feel like, how much is this book? $9.99 on Amazon. The Kindle version's a little cheaper. We're going to give away a few right now. But for the most part, I feel like this book, I would say the 4 or 5 years experience of driving, the tens of thousands of drivers I've talked to, and all the content we've created about what it's like to be a rideshare driver, the good and the bad. You'll see in this book that it's not all, hey, look how awesome Uber and Lyft driving is. I think it's a very realistic picture, kind of like how all of our content tries to be, like with anything, there's positives and negatives. If you want to do this job and you want to do it well, though, I'm going to try, I try and help you in this book kind of do it. And it's also set up as a guide. So if you want to go straight to chapter 5 and learn about all the ways to maximize your earnings, you can do so. If you're a brand new driver and you want to start and figure out, hey, who should I sign up with first? You can start in chapter 1, really learn about what you should know before you hit the road, your first ride and all that good stuff. So definitely. By the way, the giveaway. So if you guys want to enter to win a copy of this, all you need to do to enter is give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and send me an email, harry@therideshareguy.com, and let me know your one tip. Put subject line YouTube live giveaway, and just let me know your one tip for new drivers. That's all you need to do. So if you guys, we're going to give away 3 copies right now, and let's say you have 24 hours to enter. So if you're watching this live right now, I'm going to pick a winner tomorrow at this same time. And so if you guys are watching this in like 2 or 3 months, you're not going to be able to win a copy of the book, but you can buy it on Amazon. And send me an email in order to enter to win a copy of this, harry@therideshareguy.com, subject line YouTube live, and just let me know your number 1 tip for new Uber and Lyft drivers. So if you guys have already bought the book, or once you guys get a copy of the book, you can actually enter our review giveaway that we're having right now. And for every 3 entries that we get for this, we're actually giving away a $20 Amazon gift card. So all you need to do for this giveaway, if you've already bought the book, or if you've already read it, or if you win a copy of it and you want to leave us a review on Amazon, leave a review on Amazon. Step 1. Step 2, take a screenshot, email it to me, harry@therideshareguy.com, and you're done. And for every 3 entries we get there, we're going to pick one winner and give out a $20 Amazon e-gift card. And I think I mentioned earlier, we already gave away 2 today because we had 6 entries so far. So Isaac S. and Ron Dog, each won $20 Amazon e-gift card. Maybe they're on the YouTube live right now and they can confirm. Probably not, but if they are, they can definitely chime in right now. If you guys have ever won swag from me before, feel free to chime in. I know we've given out a lot of hats. And so like I said, with these giveaways, it's really not that hard to win stuff from me. We're giving away books. We're giving away cash, money all the time. So this is a pretty easy way. Go ahead. It takes 5 seconds, or maybe not 5 seconds. It takes 30 seconds to leave us a review on Amazon for the book. And, honest review. Don't say anything that you don't believe. And let's see. Right now, we are up to 25 reviews and 23 5-star reviews. It looks like we had a couple people put in, I have 2 1-star reviews. I don't know. I have 23 5-star reviews and 2 1-star reviews. So I'm assuming those 1-star reviews are people probably that just don't like me. Christian says, seriously, these are the easiest giveaways to win. Christian spends a lot of time coming up with these giveaways, and then nobody actually nobody, not a lot of people always enter these, and so he gets pissed. But let's see. We had a question. Can I buy a trucker hat? Yeah, Dan says, can I buy a trucker hat? Yeah, actually, let me leave a link to that. It's therideshareguy.com/trucker hat. We don't make any money off of the trucker hats. I just sell them at cost. And so you can definitely check that out. And yeah, I appreciate you guys all for joining. I'm going to start wrapping things up here. And we got to a lot. We covered a lot of the breaking news, the app updates, and then all of your questions. So we do these monthly YouTube lives every single month. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up right now. If you didn't, let me know in the comments below why. Dan just donated $5 via the super chat. So I really appreciate that, Dan. Definitely make sure if you have any final questions, since you just gave me $5, that's worth an answer right there. So if you have any questions right there, that's awesome. I left a link for you to go ahead and check out check out the hat. Rideshare Genius says, great book. Appreciate that. I don't know if I sent you one yet, Ezra, but if not, I'll give you one in person tomorrow. Cape Cod Ride says, nice job, Harry. Thank you very much for joining. I think that was your first time. And yeah, awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys all joining. This was a lot of fun. Like I said, we do these YouTube lives every single month. So I really enjoyed it. And if you guys do have any questions that I didn't answer, leave a comment below or shoot me an email. And until next time, guys, definitely look forward to seeing you on our next monthly YouTube live. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, we release new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and we're even releasing kind of a bonus video every other Sunday. So stay tuned for that, and you can check that out. One last time, if you guys do want to enter the giveaway for the Rideshare Guide, all you need to do is email me, harry@therideshareguide.com, subject line YouTube Live giveaway, and let me know your #1 tip for drivers. And if you leave a review on Amazon, you can also send me a screenshot of that and enter into our other giveaway. So lots of options to win, and hopefully you guys felt rewarded for coming on here. I really appreciate it, and I had a lot of fun as always. So I got to figure out how to end this thing, and I'll be back next month. So don't forget, definitely drive smarter, not harder, and I'll see you guys out there. Stay safe on the roads.